Hey everyone, welcome back to Genai's World News. I'm your host, Genai, and we have a packed show for you today. Let's dive straight in. First up, India. As the conflict in Iran continues to ripple across the global economy, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has taken the extraordinary step of asking Indian citizens to make real sacrifices in their daily lives. According to both the BBC and the Financial Times, Modi has urged Indians to work from home wherever possible, cut back on foreign travel, and even reduce their purchases of gold. The goal? To conserve India's foreign exchange reserves and slash the country's fuel import bill. The Financial Times reports that Modi framed these measures as a patriotic duty, warning that the Gulf crisis is putting serious pressure on India's economy. India is one of the world's biggest importers of oil, and with the Iran war keeping energy prices elevated and the Strait of Hormuz under strain, every barrel costs the country more than it used to. This is a big deal, folks. It's not every day that a head of government publicly asks over 1 billion people to change their daily routines for the sake of the national balance sheet. Whether Indians will follow through and whether it'll be enough remains to be seen. But the message from New Delhi is clear. Buckle up, because this crisis isn't over. Staying in the region, the Iran war itself isn't showing any signs of cooling down. Both the BBC and the Financial Times are reporting that President Trump has publicly slammed Iran's response to a U.S. peace proposal, calling it, and I'm quoting here, totally unacceptable. According to the BBC, Iran has reportedly demanded that Washington lift its naval blockade, recognize Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, and pay compensation for war damage. As you might expect, those terms didn't go over well in Washington. The Financial Times notes that oil prices climbed again on the back of this diplomatic deadlock, as markets grow increasingly nervous about the Strait of Hormuz remaining closed. That narrow waterway is one of the most critical choke points for global oil shipping, and every day it stays disrupted adds pressure to energy costs worldwide. So right now, we have no ceasefire, no deal, and no clear path forward. The economic consequences are already being felt from New Delhi to London, and we'll see more of that throughout today's show. And while nations scramble to deal with the fallout from the Iran conflict, some players are doing very, very well out of it. The Financial Times is reporting that the trading desks of Europe's biggest oil companies, BP, Shell, and Total Energies, have collectively reaped as much as $4.75 billion in profits from trading on the price swings caused by the war. The FT notes that these European energy majors have actually outperformed their American rivals in this regard, with their trading operations taking advantage of wild price volatility in oil and gas markets. It's a striking contrast. Millions of people are feeling the pain of higher energy costs, while some of the world's biggest corporations are booking windfall gains. This is sure to add fuel, no pun intended, to calls for windfall taxes on energy companies in Europe. Governments across the continent are already under pressure to shield consumers from soaring bills, and headlines like this one are unlikely to help the industry's public image. Now let's shift focus to what could be one of the most consequential diplomatic meetings of the year. The BBC is reporting that President Trump is preparing for a visit to China, the first time a sitting U.S. president has set foot in Beijing in nearly a decade. And all eyes are on the fragile tariff truce between the world's two largest economies. The BBC describes the current situation as delicate at best. Both sides agreed to a temporary pause in their trade war, but the underlying tensions haven't gone away. The upcoming summit will test whether that truce can be solidified into something more lasting, or whether it's about to unravel. Adding an interesting dimension to all of this, the Financial Times reports that China has fixed its currency at a 3-year high just ahead of the meeting. That's a significant move. It signals Beijing's desire to project economic confidence and stability going into negotiations. The FT also notes that deflationary pressures in China appear to be easing, which gives Xi Jinping a slightly stronger hand at the table. With tariffs, Taiwan, technology restrictions, and the Iran war all potentially on the agenda, this summit has enormous stakes, not just for the US and China, but for the entire global economy. Moving on to Australia now, where a political earthquake just hit. The Financial Times is reporting that Pauline Hanson's One Nation Party, long a controversial force in Australian politics, has won its first ever seat in the lower house of Parliament, following a surprise victory in a by-election. The FT says this result is sending shockwaves through Australia's traditional centre-right parties, raising serious questions about whether mainstream conservatives are losing their grip on a chunk of their voter base. It's a pattern we've seen in Europe and North America, centrist parties getting squeezed as populist and far-right movements capture frustrated voters. One Nation has long advocated for strict immigration controls and skepticism of climate policy, and this victory suggests those messages are resonating more broadly than the political establishment would like to admit. Whether this is a one-off protest vote or the start of a new chapter in Australian politics is the big question analysts are now asking. Across the globe to the United Kingdom, where Prime Minister Keir Starmer is in full damage control mode. The Financial Times is reporting that Starmer is fighting for his political survival after Labour suffered a heavy beating in recent local elections, a result that has shaken confidence in his leadership both inside and outside the party. The FT describes Starmer as urgently trying to win back public support, with Reform UK, Nigel Farage's populist party, apparently capitalising on Labour's struggles. The narrative emerging from Westminster is one of a government that came to power with enormous promise, but is now struggling to define itself and connect with voters. The local election results were a stark wake-up call. If Starmer can't turn things around soon, the pressure from within his own parliamentary party is likely to intensify. Britain's political landscape is looking increasingly fragmented, and that creates both danger and opportunity for every party involved. And finally today, a story that's caught the attention of health authorities in Europe. The BBC is reporting that a French national has shown symptoms consistent with Hantavirus after returning home from what's being described as a Hantavirus-affected ship, the MV Hondius. According to the BBC, France's Prime Minister has confirmed that 5 passengers from the vessel will be placed in quarantine in Paris and will remain there until further notice. Authorities are closely monitoring the situation. For those who may not be familiar, Hantavirus is a serious illness transmitted primarily through contact with infected rodents or their droppings. Human-to-human transmission is rare but not unheard of, which is why authorities are taking no chances here. Health officials across Europe are keeping a close eye on developments, particularly given that the ship may have docked at multiple ports. This is a developing story, so we'll continue to monitor it and bring you updates as they come in. And that's a wrap on today's edition of Genai World News. From India's austerity push to Trump's China summit, oil windfalls, and political shakeups, it's been a big day on the world stage. If you found this video valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe so you never miss an update, and drop a comment below telling us which story caught your attention most. I'm Genai. Stay informed, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one. BBC News is reporting that a French national